Hello and welcome to another episode of Between the Studs. We're back with another crew of great, knowledgeable LEGO people. We've got Mark, Randy, Chris, and Daniel, and we're going to break down the latest episode of LEGO Masters Season 3. This would be episode 4, right? Episode 4,
yes.
the Treehouse Challenge.
2 weeks in the making.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, but before we get into the challenge itself, how do you guys feel about these delays? Is this irritating to you? Because I am extremely bothered by it. Randy, what do you think?
It's really frustrating.
Yeah.
You don't know, so you're waiting to find out. Is it coming on? Is it coming in later? Is it going to be delayed? Yeah.
Stupid baseball.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
no. There's nothing wrong with baseball. The weather is really to blame here,
Yes.
right? So what do you think, Chris?
I think compared to season 2, it's nothing.
That's
season
true.
Season 2
Yeah.
got me used to it.
Yeah.
This is just back to normal for Chris, right? Yeah, there you go. What do you think, Daniel?
It's just frustrating because they made the push to the fall, and now they're having all these scheduling issues, and it's like, okay, well, you could have done it back in the summer when there probably wasn't much else on.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very confusing, and it's understandable, but confusing and disappointing at the same time. So, aside from the delays, we did finally get to watch it last night in the United States. So, what did you guys think about the challenge itself? The tree house you're building, no stud connections. The judges and everybody was very specific about there's no way to actually attach in Lego other than just wrap it around or attach it by friction. So what did you guys think about the challenge? Let's start with you, Daniel. What were your observations of the actual event?
I really like the idea of the challenge. There was a lot of room for creativity, a very difficult structural challenge, of course. I don't think we've ever seen attaching anything without any pre-existing stud attachment points. I think there were probably a lot of rules that we didn't know about.
Yep.
Because everyone seems to be going for clamping on or around branches. Not a lot of people were going for, like, hanging things.
Yeah.
There were things that were still sitting on top of the boughs of the tree that had, like, ropes and things going to other ones, but nothing was just hanging, like Christmas ornaments or, something
Yeah,
like
it
that.
definitely was wrapped
kind of
versus
surprised.
hung.
So maybe there was something there that structures actually had to sit on top of those branches and things. So, I don't know.
Yeah, every single episode that we've done, I've been informed by people on Season 3 that there were tons of regulations. Yeah. So if we have the slight suspicion that they are there, it's almost positive that there were some sort of guidelines that they didn't explain on camera, which I kind of wish they would have. Yeah. But Chris, what do you think about the challenge?
Just like Daniel, I thought it was really an interesting idea. It was different.
Yeah.
But
the trees.
It was aesthetically pleasing. The trees were neat. They looked like something from Dr. Seuss book.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
But in the end result, it was too easy. There was no actual challenge.
It wasn't super hard. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't like I've seen some more crazy challenges on other episodes even. So
when Will pulled out the chainsaw, I was like, okay, here it comes. Let's do this.
Exactly.
The mid challenge.
The shenanigans.
Yes.
Yeah.
The twist didn't happen, which I'm grateful for, but I know that it would have been better TV. But what do you think about the challenge, Randy?
I like the treehouse idea. I was hoping for a twist. I really thought they were going to, because it felt a little basic at the beginning as people were building, so I was hoping a twist was going to come in to throw a little excitement in.
I guess the twist was that there wasn't a
No
twist.
twist, yeah.
So that was the twist. But I thought the challenge was a good one. It's better than, say, like the special effects with dinosaurs one, in my opinion. This is actually similar to the cliffhanger challenge and the hat challenge from season 2. First of all, you're working against gravity. It's not easy to balance it on the branches until you figure it out, and then it is easy. But they were saying, oh, no stud connections. It's crazy. I'm like, well, we put Lego hats on our heads. There's no stud connections on our heads. So,
good point.
and we had to walk with it. This was thankfully a stationary challenge. They didn't have to move their trees once it was built. I think that it's hard, but maybe not as hard as some things we've actually seen. So good challenge overall. Do we have a list of the builds, Randy, that we want to go over those?
I have my notes.
Yeah, so I think I was fairly impressed with all the builds, but I think some did better than others. Let's kind of dive into them here. What do we got?
All right, so let's talk about our newbies.
Yes.
Because they, definitely got a lot of airtime. Ethan and Dom, they had their branches of imagination.
That's what they called it?
Yeah. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Very artsy.
Yeah. And they had a lot of the brick-built characters, which I thought were great, and I thought it was different from a lot of the other builds. So it added something to it, but that's really what comes to mind was just the brick-built people, not so much the treehouse that they built.
Yeah,
in my head.
The structures were pretty simple. You had like a castle, you had like a rocket ship and a pirate ship. They were all pretty small, medium size, and then they had these bigger characters on them, which I did like. But what did you guys think about them, Chris?
Yeah, I think for their first challenge, they came out super strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fact that they eventually got in the dunk,
and in fact, the firefighters, who their names are what?
Steven and Steven.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Well,
Yeah, right?
Okay, so Steven and Steven even mentioned, like, oh, wow, these guys came to build. Yeah,
they did pretty good for their
all
first
the
outing.
time. They were saying little quips about them. They kept calling them rookies, and
Yeah.
let's see what these new guys can do. And then, but yeah, we'll talk about them more, I'm sure.
For sure.
Yep.
But that was overall good build. Happy for Ethan and Dom not to just completely fluke on the first outing, so that's good. But
the pressure.
Oh yeah,
they must have had.
They held up okay to the pressure.
They did.
So that's good.
Do we know how old they are?
They would have both been about 18.
About 18. Okay.
Maybe Dom might have been 19, but anyway.
Do you have to be 18 at least?
You do
To be on the show.
They were barely over the limit of age.
Because the UK Lego Masters, they had like kids on there.
Yeah, like 12-year-old and 13-year-old kids. Yeah, that's the United States laws are different, I guess.
Yeah.
But I also didn't enjoy watching it.
Yeah, so there you go.
They need should be a whole kids category maybe.
The Netherlands Belgium Lego Masters version did an all kids version.
Okay, there
and I've heard it was good because they're kids having fun. So
They need to follow the Jeopardy format. So like we're getting a celebrity episode, I think, with the Christmas special. So like Celebrity Jeopardy. Now I want to see the Tournament of Champions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then you could
That'd
have
be great.
kids, or I mean, college wouldn't really be a thing, but
Yeah.
That would be interesting. That'd be fun.
That'd be fun.
Anyway,
Okay.
back to the builds.
Builds. Next we had, I wrote down Nick and Stacy. They had their giant red Lego piece.
Yeah, that was quite the build. The Lego brick, the 2x4, was really quite impressive and eye-catching, well sculpted.
Mm-hmm.
But there were other things in the build I didn't quite like as much as some of the other ones. What did you guys think about it, Randy? What was your overall impression?
I mean, it was cool, like from the outside because you knew what it was, and it did have the little hidden door, but you couldn't see anything in the back.
It
When
was
it turned
pretty
around,
plain. It had a few rooms, but
so it was. I don't know. It just left me a little meh. I did like the cardboard monster they made though.
it was
That
overall
cute,
pretty.
but
Yeah,
It was a 2x4 brick.
yeah. It was definitely a Lego brick that was
Yeah.
a treehouse, and it was like good, but it was like 80% good. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just wasn't
There you
quite
go, yeah.
100% landing for me. So, what do you think, Chris?
There was something coming up out of it, a dark tan stick
it was
or
an
something.
extra tree branch. I'm not sure why they added it.
I was confused. In fact, when they showed the build, I thought it was the hockey players that wear the hockey jerseys, and they were putting a hockey stick out of it. And I was like, oh, come on, another hockey stick. Give me a break, eh? And, but then it was theirs, and I was like, oh, well, maybe they put a hockey stick. And then
They're
I was
also in
like,
Canada,
maybe
yeah.
it's not a hockey stick. I don't know.
Now, Stacy had said something to him while they were building about like, hey, can you finish up that tree branch or something? And he said, yeah, I'll get to it in a minute. So they were adding an extra tree branch, but I couldn't really get a clear picture of what they were doing.
I don't even remember seeing that. I guess I must have been distracted by the other details, but that it seems superfluous to make another tree branch in a
In a
tree.
tree.
I have to
Yeah.
go back and see if they put something on it or.
Yeah.
So some details were out of place for overall for us, I guess. is
Yeah.
the
I really liked it
consensus.
overall. I mean, that was Nick's
Oh, yeah.
style through and through.
Yeah.
Like a very clear, well executed, bright, colorful
And
thing.
Yeah.
I
But
think-
the dollhouse style, I think, would have been better if they went more similar to Dave and Emily's with like a door that opened.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
when they were showing it from the inside of the back, you're looking at the structure inside for the rooms, and it was a little unrefined. It was you're looking at the undersides of plates, and
Yeah.
they were like gray and tan and brown mixed together instead of red.
A little more humble looking.
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
So- but what was I going to say?
Really well done.
One thing that I think that really helped them with the judges is that they were talking about across the room, kind of the same way that we did for episode 5 of our season with the hanging challenge. It's like you need to be able to see it across the room, and then when you get close, you need to be able to see all the details. So I guess that they definitely qualified in both of those, so that was probably a big advantage for them. Because you see that Lego brick from a mile away,
absolutely.
so that's good.
I kind of thought that was Mark and Boone's disadvantage in season 1, and
Yes.
that Boone always had so much going on in his builds using minifigures, and you just couldn't see it from far away.
Yeah.
And when you got up close, it was like, oh wow, there's a
It's
lot
awesome
going on there.
when you get this close to it, but from
Yeah.
standing a ways away, it's maybe not making as big an impression. So interesting.
right.
Good balance for them because they ended up doing pretty well. But anyway, next build.
Next one, Christine and Michelle, the artists. They did their fairy B&B, and they struggled. They struggled with the concept of what to pick, or that they each connected to.
Yeah, they had idea issues for sure. Michelle basically had a breakdown moment once Amy and Jamie came and challenged them about their idea, and they were like, "We don't have an idea," and then she's just like, she couldn't handle it.
Right. And then the one mom on set, you should have some applesauce.
Emily went
get
into
him
full
in,
mom.
get him whatever,
Yep.
yeah, full mom
To
mode.
calm the nervous
So,
system.
Yeah, it was sweet.
I actually like that, and it's
Yeah.
also it's very interesting to watch because it's like, oh man, they're having a rough time, but it's
Yeah.
also like I really appreciated Emily and both Liam was like right there
Yeah, he
too,
seemed
saying
to
you
be,
guys
yeah.
are going to do great. They
Yeah.
were so encouraging and kind, and I'm like, that's really sweet that they were able to show that because there was some drama on our season where people were walking off and they weren't able to show that.
Yeah.
So
I'm surprised they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they were leaning so heavily into the drama of this. I mean, this is classic reality TV. Somebody storms off and has a breakdown.
Yeah.
But then the fact that they showed that inter-team kind of helping out in the midst of competition while the clock is running.
Yeah.
Frankly, I was surprised that they didn't just edit that out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad it was included. That made that otherwise kind of I feel bad drama moment into, oh wow, they're actually kind people there too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's cool.
It brought it back into the wholesome area instead
Right.
of just the drama TV.
So they started building with about 4 hours left. Is what we saw on TV.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
hard
So
to
was it,
believe they went 6 hours
Right.
without actually
That's a lot of
that's
drama.
A lot of,
You
yeah,
know.
that's a lot of, yeah.
getting something. I don't know.
Well, they definitely had a frame built
Mm-hmm.
at that time because even when Jamie and Amy came over, they had 2 boxes.
It was like
Yeah.
brown, yeah.
Yeah.
So they probably gotten a pretty good structure built. They just didn't know what to put on it.
Right.
But in the end, from afar, I thought it actually looked really
The
good.
mushrooms
and I
came
would
out
not
really
have
good.
put it in the bottom 2.
Yeah, I think they just put them in the bottom 2 because they struggled so much.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because their build was not even the worst one there. I mean, it's
I
like
don't think it was.
their build was actually quite good for the short amount of time and the limited time they had an actual idea they were going for.
Yeah.
So like, kudos to
It's
them,
in there.
really
Yeah.
doing a good job building fast. And I think it's just the judges were not impressed with the lack of teamwork and idea generation that was happening. So they just decided.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
we'll talk about judging in a minute.
Dave and Emily.
Mm-hmm.
With Dave and Emily with their haggle slag. Although she says it way cooler than I do.
Huggle
Yeah,
slide
huggle
or
slide.
something.
Yeah.
Slide.
With the toast with sprinkles on it. We should try that some morning.
That sounds like a new staple.
Isn't that a
I'm-
British thing too? Don't British do that too?
I just remember putting
Is it-
sprinkles in everything as a kid, so
Yeah,
that
I
was.
think I've heard like Australians do it
I
too.
know
They
that
call it
other
like
people-
fairy bread,
Yes,
or fairy
fairy-
toast, or
yeah,
something.
something like
It's just
that, yeah.
sprinkles on
With
bread.
butter, right?
Well,
Yeah.
the Dutch love bread, butter, and probably sprinkles too. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's definitely.
I mean,
sugar.
who
Yeah,
doesn't love a
just
donut with
sweets.
sprinkles? Or something? I mean, they're not-
Pastries.
yeah.
so
yeah.
I like the idea. I think they
Yeah.
had no problems with the
Right?
idea, and the build was actually quite good
I
too.
thought the build was great. I love the. It looked like a tree house to me. Like it was really
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
It had a traditional style,
Yes.
and it had its really good details with the sprinkles and the
Right.
bread and,
And when you
stuff.
opened it, you saw all the detail.
Yeah,
Which
it
the
was-
open part. Oh, so
great,
good.
Great presentation
Mm-hmm.
feature with the door. But what were your thoughts on that build, Chris? Did you like the sprinkles and the theme?
Yeah, I thought it was different
Mm-hmm.
and good because of that. And they didn't do anything hockey.
Yeah,
related.
exactly.
Yes,
Which
yes.
is great. No, you really need to get away from
Yes.
from
The stereotype.
stereotype.
Yeah.
Like I think in season 2, Zach and Wayne always went for the same style
Asia
of building,
dragons.
and you got to break away and do something different. So I liked it because of that.
Yeah. Daniel, your thoughts on Dave and Emily's build? Pretty good.
It was a really well polished. I liked the dollhouse style,
Mhm.
and then they had those iconic elements. I mean, the way they executed that slice of bread with the sprinkles on it was really well done.
Yeah.
Nice balance of color. Everything was really well done.
I think Dave and Emily definitely got some humble pie last time with the rodeo, but you can whenever I see their builds, there's always something that's like, wow, that's pretty next level stuff. The
Yeah.
bread and sprinkles is really good. The sign on their gas station was like really good lettering. There's little hints of greatness among a solid build overall usually. So I'm happy to see them doing well. So
Yeah, they came back really strong after last week for sure.
They did, yeah.
I think they could have been, if there was like a top 3 instead of 2, I think they would have been the next
We'll
one.
talk about that in a second. I think that they
Yeah.
should have been placed higher than they were. Anyway,
Okay, Brendan and Greg,
yes, the brothers.
the brothers with their PK house.
Yeah, they had an interesting build. I think that they did the best of taking over the whole tree because it was all they had a room and different little colors and ideas in
Yeah.
each of these different areas. It wasn't just kind of like concentrated on the core. It wasn't too unbalanced. So I thought that
Yeah.
their composition was excellent.
Yes.
What did you guys think about their ideas, Randy? What did you think?
I thought it was fun that it was very personal to them with all their siblings. I thought was sweet, but it just felt small
Yeah.
to me. It didn't read from across, other than it just looked like small little hanging, almost like ornaments, more than.
Maybe lacking
Yeah.
the wow factor.
Yes.
It was a lot of nice little tree houses,
Yeah.
but it needed something that was
them telling me their story behind it made me like it more. But I just feel like it was small.
Yeah, there wasn't a giant Lego brick. There wasn't a giant slice of sprinkled bread on the side. There was some. It was missing maybe the dynamic, different factor. It was personal and cool and well balanced, but
it did have the bucket that lowered and went up and down. I thought
the motor.
Yes. One of the only power functions.
The only one, right?
I think it was. Yeah.
So that I can recall.
Yeah. But what did you guys think about it, Daniel and Chris?
I liked the hanging pods.
Yeah.
That was a good use. They're moving around a little bit. It was really neat.
For sure.
To what Randy was saying, maybe like a slightly larger centralized one would have helped, but I also like the kind of separate interconnected pods. It gives me very like Swiss Family Robinson treehouse kind of style.
Yep.
And that's what Dom and Ethan did as well, and some other people had little small things, kind of contained units peppered around the tree instead of necessarily just one large one.
Yeah, I think that they definitely were taking advantage of the whole tree, not just the easiest part of the tree.
For sure.
Yeah. Very cool.
Okay, John and Xavier.
The
with
anime
their
bros.
Fort Puno? Is that what it was?
It was something like that.
I'm not going to say that because I don't know what it means.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It's,
I'm going off what it said on the screen.
It's probably harmless, I'm guessing, because they had to actually tone down the Boston moms, were actually started out as the mass something else.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they changed their whole team name because it was not family friendly, so now they're.
Talk about that
yeah, I'll explain that to you guys later. But yeah, they had a interesting build. I think they had a few struggles. I think that the Lego ladder bridge, if that was a late addition, that's actually kind of tying into Nick and Stacy's idea of the Lego brick. So I'm like, But overall, it didn't look too bad. Maybe the color was blending in a little bit. But what did you guys think? Let's start with Daniel this time.
You may have to give me some more background on this, but in their original concept art that pops up on the screen, they executed what they set out to do. Yeah. But it was not the best idea. I mean, their concept art was basically two big plates with this ladder. I think it could have been like the judges said, they needed more tying it together. Maybe instead of a ladder, it was like a big rainbow spiral staircase or something that wraps all the way around.
Or slide.
Or, when they said they needed something to put something in the middle, when they got that feedback, I mean, I would have done something very colorful and maybe kind of like a tapering structure that then supports them so it becomes kind of an hourglass shape or something.
That would have been amazing.
And their downfall there was what they ended up doing was they built some brown and tan
on a brown tan
tree around they just sort of turned the tree trunk into like a but you got to pivot.
And you got to include that color. Amy will get you if you don't include it. In fact, they actually joked about it in the Will jokes to the tin can. He's like, oh, they're just going to tell you to add color and watch your time.
So, that's really... If they even made the two platforms like each of their favorite colors or something to represent them, it would have helped a lot.
Yeah, there was white, brown, and tan.
Yeah.
And there was the colored Lego on the side, but it's like they really probably should have chosen some other colors.
Yeah.
So.
And the structure, like they were saying, when you look at it from across the room, it just looks like two plates with a ladder.
Is that your synopsis as well, Chris? Pretty much the same?
More or less, yeah. They covered that tree, the tree trunk, and it was okay, but it looked like they didn't finish it. They didn't have time to finish it.
Yeah, they didn't get all the way up either,
But when Amy said the comment about color, I'm like, well, that tree houses are tan and brown. Yeah. That's what they are. That's what I would have done, and that's why I would never.
Yeah, but Lego tree houses.
Yes.
Yeah, castles are gray, but no one wants to see just a big gray castle. Yeah. So you gotta.
Or tan.
Or tan. You can't make gray and tan and brown. Amy and Jamie to a lesser extent, but they don't like that. They want color. So.
Yep.
Yeah. And did you think of that as well, Randy? Was that your opinion?
Yeah, it just felt very one-dimensional. It wasn't exciting. It was just, I don't know. And then the little bridge staircase thing that they built, it just didn't look like it belonged there. Like they just slapped it on. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was not a favorite.
Yeah,
sure.
they might have gone a little bit too safe, and they didn't have any wow factor. The details were good. I like the stories that were going on because they had little scenes inside, but you could barely see them because they're just to place.
On a big platform, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, John Xavier had a difficult time with this challenge.
Yep.
But, Steven
and Steven are firefighters with the Treehouse University.
I like the firefighters with the cats in the trees joke was just great.
That was
especially when was it Will that came over and said something about, is there going to be like, do you really rescue cats from trees?
Yes.
And are you going to work it in? And they were like, oh, we already did.
Totally got it covered.
Yeah.
That was so good.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like theirs had a lot of detail that we didn't really get to see. It kind of went kind of quick over theirs, and I was like, wait, what was on that other side? I don't feel like we even saw some of their details.
I don't think we saw their whole build, actually, because of how quickly they were kind of put through. I think Steven and Steven were mostly used in this episode to try and add story to Dom and Ethan.
Yes.
And that, like, the rookies.
Right.
Yes.
Because when you're a firefighter, there's very much that kind of hierarchy and newbies and all that sort of stuff.
They're older guys, they're teenage kids, so it's that was their dynamic. It's interesting to see Greg and Brennan be pulled out of the competitive vibe, and they're now more family, and they're showing pictures of their family, and now Steven and Steven are the competitive. They're like, oh, you got to prove yourselves. We're going to stop you. They're going to block you. So it's like, I think that the dynamic has shifted now that they've added this new team. Because Greg and Brennan were way too competitive in episode 1. I think that was supposed to be their story. And now it's there's a bit of a shift, so it's interesting.
They also had what I think is maybe the first swear word on Lego Masters.
Oh,
I don't know if
I don't remember it. I might not have
you all heard it.
It
was after... I think it was after everybody finished and they did they covered Dom and Ethan's build and they were giving it a lot of praise. Or maybe it was when they announced that they were in the top 2.
Oh,
and he said a 4-letter word.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I didn't even catch that.
I did not catch that.
Steven said it. I don't know what...
One of the Stevens. We'll go back and watch it.
I wonder if Fox cut it, because I don't remember seeing that.
It was in the, I don't know, it was on Tubi.
Oh.
He watches the unedited version.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. The
after hours version of Lego Masters.
Yeah, fun
Interesting.
Stuff. All right,
Emily and Liam with their panda playtime. It was cute.
They definitely had some good building going on. So it was a kind of a fun story. I just don't like the idea as much. I don't know. It wasn't working for me on an idea level, but because it's like, what do they have to do with pandas?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. And then doesn't mean you always have to do what represents you. Like the firefighters did the university. They're not necessarily college professors, but it's I don't know. Just felt like a disjointed idea, and it was well executed, and it had some fun aspects to it. But I don't know. What did you guys think about it?
The techniques that were in that build, when you looked at it really close, were extremely advanced given the amount of time that they had. The brick-built characters that they did, their heads were totally like snot constructed. Their heads were the heads of the characters were only about a 2x2 brick, but they used snot techniques so that like the eyes were vertical and the mouth was like a horizontal plate. I saw snot lettering, like you see in some of the modular buildings, like the Pets sign or stuff like that. There was a sign that was snot lettering.
Yeah, those like
the
Japanese
Mama Panda
characters. Yeah,
was like using Lowell sphere techniques. So there was some very advanced stuff going on in there. I'm sure most of that's coming from Liam.
Yeah,
I have to imagine.
They're clearly showing off. They still got some very good building skills and tricks to show off. So yeah. What about you, Chris? I feel like you got thoughts.
Well, that's just like you. That's not my kind of theme.
Yeah,
I didn't. That's not what I would do, but as soon as they said, oh, it's a panda playhouse up in the tree, I was like, okay, they're getting through.
Yeah.
Because that's what other people like.
Yeah, it's cool. It's fun.
The mother panda was great.
Yeah.
And the Z's coming out were awesome. The house was, I didn't get a good look at it, but it just seemed very basic.
Red and square, maybe.
The round window or doorway, that was very nice.
There you go.
And then the baby pandas weren't cute enough.
Yeah, they could have had bigger heads, maybe.
They were, compared to the mother. The mother was awesome.
Yeah. So I think probably limited physical ability, limited time might have resulted in like less than their ideal, but I think they execute a lot of great things. So, And I like that. Got to reiterate how much I like Liam and Emily's sportsmanship in being able to show kindness and compassion to their competitors right across from them having a very difficult time with ideas. So.
Yeah.
Well, you don't think you and Steven would have done that?
I wouldn't have gone over and told them to go for some applesauce.
Did anybody offer you applesauce on your
I don't think we had applesauce. This might have been the season to have applesauce. I don't know. So.
That was so sweet.
That was I still liked that moment. I didn't realize how much I actually was appreciative of that being included. So gotta shout him out again.
Yeah,
All right,
awesome.
Austin
Wait,
and
I
Justin.
also want to bring up the new golden brick display case.
Yes.
Oh, right. Oh.
Okay. So
Sitting on their desk very
Yes.
prominently the whole time.
they've got a case for it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was even Lego. I think it was actually just an actual physical
I think it
jewelry
was built
case.
out of brick.
You think it was? Okay, I didn't
Yeah,
get a
it
good
looked
look
like
at it.
Black
It was
bricks,
like
yeah.
columns and then some inverted slopes.
I'm guessing Liam.
I don't think it had windows.
I
inside.
assumed Liam built that for it.
I don't know.
I have
that
no
was
idea.
great.
I think
I
he.
don't
I
know.
think
Yeah.
he did.
I think it's a good idea because it's always available instead of just in
your
my
pocket.
Yeah, because eventually they had to keep asking to see it.
Yeah.
And I would just pull it out and be like, oh.
It looked like it had like a little light inside. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously they add like the glint effect after.
Oh, yeah, they-
it looked like it was lit from underneath.
That's
so
a good idea.
I don't know
they-
if it was a prop that somebody made. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a good inclusion. It's different, but I'm okay with it. It's good. So yeah, and that's important to note, Daniel. Thank you. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Next build.
Austin and Justin, the doctors, they had their fiction and fiction theme.
Fiction
which I
and
like.
fiction.
I love books, so I thought that was
I
really
thought it was
fun.
fiction and friction.
Was that what it was?
I don't know.
Maybe I wrote it down
Fiction
wrong.
and friction would make sense. It's
Yes.
one of those two.
It's one of those two.
Yeah. Mhm.
It was late for me by that point.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Again, baseball.
Baseball. Yeah.
They
it
got
was
glossed over.
They
I
really
think.
did. I mean, you barely saw that because I was writing down like little notes and stuff, and I was like, "Wait, I'm missing one for a long part of the episode before we even got to them." And they showed that they were books, and you saw like an airplane and one other one, and then I think that was it.
Yeah, you got one comment from Jamie saying he liked how he got the edges of the book,
Books,
that the
yeah.
pages were visible on the sides, so that was nice. But that was about all we heard about their build. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Another point I want to bring up. Okay, so out of all of their little books and stories that they built, there was a pirate ship, a castle,
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
a spaceship,
Uh-huh.
a plane.
Uh-oh.
Dom and Ethan's was a pirate ship,
Oh yeah.
a castle, a spaceship, and then their fourth one was actually better. Instead of the plane, they had somebody climbing a pyramid, which I think was maybe a nod to Adventurers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I think they picked
I'm sure.
the classic trifecta
Yeah.
plus Adventurers. The other guys picked the classic trifecta plus a plane for some reason. That was kind of an odd choice.
You already
for
have a
the fourth one.
spaceship. That's a little bit of a step down
Yeah,
from the
Yeah.
spaceship.
I like that they had the Adventurers nod, if that is what they were going for.
Yeah, well, while we're talking about the comparisons, I would like to point out that early in the episode, Dom and Ethan are like, they make a big point of explaining what a brick-built character is. And they're like, they even
Yeah,
had
the
Amy
Lego
and Jamie,
line.
Yes,
like,
the Lego ideas.
Lego designers explaining us
Yes.
what that is. And so it was interesting. I think that I'm theorizing this, but Dom and Ethan showed up. Ethan is known for doing brick-built characters and stuff. Not to a huge extent, but he's totally capable of doing it. So I think that they saw some of the things they've seen from the previous two seasons. Tyler and Amy went big into characters. Me and Steven went big into characters. Let's go for brick-built characters and really step up the game. And I think that the entire room started doing that as soon as they did. I think Emily and Liam were the only exception. Pandas are very deliberate, but everybody else was including brick-built characters right after that instead of
Yes.
minifigures. So it was
Right.
like Nick and Stacy made a few characters like the cardboard monster.
Cardboard, yeah.
Right.
You had, I think the most obvious example is Austin and Justin. They had their brick-built characters that were very similar to the other ones. And I'm like,
Yes.
I'm worried about conflicting, like, not copying, but like they probably should have pivoted a little bit once their ideas became so similar. I
Yes.
don't know. Yeah, brick-built characters, this was the episode. And I think, Chris, you had some thoughts about that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I was wondering why all of a sudden you saw all these brick-built characters. But
Yeah.
I think you kind of answered that in that maybe Ethan and Dom showed up and brought their game, and now everybody's like, oh gosh, all right, now it's time to start building brick-built
up.
characters.
Yeah.
I
I think Steven and
agree.
Steven even mentioned it in the episode.
so.
They're like, oh, they're building their own characters, you know, not using minifigures or something.
And that's good. I mean, I really want to see the bar get raised.
It
for
has
this.
to,
I mean,
yeah.
it was a little. I was worried there for the first few episodes. Everybody was feeling just kind of middle of the pack. There weren't really a lot of high standouts, and I think this is going to force people to kind of advance their techniques and step up to the plate a little bit.
They got to take some bigger swings, maybe. I know Emily and Liam have been, but everybody else has to now.
Yeah.
Could also be
Right,
bigger
yes.
falls, though. So
Yes.
we'll see what happens.
Exactly.
All right, our last team, Aaron and Liz, with their girls rule pirate ship.
Girls rule.
Yeah, that's it. There you go.
That was a interesting build. The purple pirate ship was a fun idea. I think it was a little blocky. The idea is fun. They ended up executing it fine, I think, but just a little bit of a, I don't know. The basic 2x4 is made to use to build the ship was like, it's fine, but I could see other ways they could have done it. But what did you guys think about the build overall?
If I did a guys rule pirate ship,
Yeah.
it would have had these big sails.
Yeah.
You know, it would be very how we have a YouTube viewer, Malistair, that is having us build a commission build for him, and it's just very intimidating is the word he wanted, and it would be very intimidating.
Yeah.
How many guns would you have on your?
They probably wouldn't let
would
you.
have to have.
They wouldn't let you build any cannons.
No.
Probably
No
just
cannons.
because they didn't have any weapons at all. So.
But this is their opportunity. Sails would really have stood out.
They did have some, and they talked about them a little bit, but I think they could have gone way more with the sales. So.
And then
They didn't read well. They
I
sort of
thought
just
it was
looked like
just
big signs.
Yeah, that's exactly
But
what I wrote down.
The judges said something about your sails really say something from across the room or something like that, and I was like, oh, okay. I didn't even notice it had sails. I didn't know they were there.
Yeah.
But the color was fantastic.
Purple's a good choice.
Yeah.
That was very different from everything else in the room, so that was good. And they did figure out their problem with the stability, because at first their design was not working. It broke in Liz's hands.
No.
And then they ended up making a Technic box and building off of that, and that seemed to work great for them. So it's good.
I think there was some fudging of the editing going on there, because when they were still like doing that and Liz had the part like break in her hand, I think there was something ridiculous like 2 or 3 hours left on the clock, and I was like, oh, there's no way that happened that late in the
that
game.
was probably within the first few hours that was happening. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was them that they showed. They had a comment. One of them said, "Well, you didn't tell me to do that," or something like that.
They had a little
And
bit of
little
conversation.
spicy.
You know, you don't want too much of that. You want the happiness and the getting along, but at the same time, when you're doing any kind of team activity, you're going to have conflict like that, especially when you're tired and.
It's episode 4. They're starting to die.
Yeah,
They're
Getting
deteriorating.
sassy with each other.
So you can't blame anybody for getting spicy with their partner.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And it's just neat when they show that.
But they're gonna get it on camera and they're gonna put it in.
Yeah,
every time they're gonna get you.
I know Liz and Aaron had a lot of fun on the episode, but I know that Liz mentioned that there was a bit of conflict with not only their team, but most of the teams probably had this going on. And so I think they're probably going to be a little bit worried about how that's presented, given how genuine they've been with the good stuff. Maybe they'll be genuine with the not so friendly stuff. We'll see. So
You can always tell when somebody's like saying something to their partner that they don't want to be caught on camera, but they got it anyway.
Yeah.
Like after
they're recording
after
everything.
Michelle walked off, Nick like leaned over to Stacy and he was like, "Did you see Michelle?" And he kind of like whispered it out. He was like, "Did you see where Michelle went?" or something like that.
Yeah.
And they caught it. It was on.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what I remember. Me and Steven, if something was happening, we would like be like either not even looking at them, or we'd be like communicating about somebody else's build. And I'm sure they caught it. They just didn't decide to cover it. So we'd be discussing all about the room and like saying like, "Oh, did you see what Dave is doing?" So that's totally realistic. And they do capture everything because they got at least a camera on you at all times. So it's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Steven's good about not making bad comments, but it's hard to miss his facial. It's like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But those overall, so what did you think of the builds overall for the challenge? Do you think that they were able to, like, everybody overall succeeded at the challenge, or do you think that it was a little bit like a lower bar this challenge? Because I think that they did it pretty good, but I felt like they maybe could have just been a little bit more polished. I would have liked to see more like Dave and Emily's, for example. I thought was a really good example. I think it overall could have been a little better. I think people were struggling. What do you guys think?
There were some builds that I noticed, Austin and Justin and maybe Brendan and Greg or something, that you could tell they were the middle of the pack people for this episode. And they went to the judging and they were basically like, "Looks great. All right, who's next?"
Yeah.
We're still early enough in the season that they're just kind of glossing over the people who just did fine. You just have to not be the worst, really, at this stage.
Yeah, that's true. I did think that they at least talked about everyone a little bit, because like the first few episodes, like, they really had no time. This one, they at least had time to talk with everyone. I think that we're getting just an extra 30 seconds of time for everybody. I don't know. So. Yeah.
I was like, Brendan and Greg, who?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That first couple episodes, you just didn't see everybody.
You at least got to see a picture with their family this time, so that was nice. Yeah, so you get a little bit of personality to them. All the builds done. The judging happens. How did you guys feel about the top? Was it top 2 that was announced first? Yeah. So top 2, I think it was Nick and Stacy, and then you had, what was the other team?
And
it was
then it was
Dom and Ethan.
Dom and Ethan.
How did you guys feel about that placement? Did you agree with the judging? Did you disagree with the judging? Let's start with Randy. What were your thoughts?
I liked Ethan and Dom's just in that it did bring a different element, and then you did see people. I agree. They kind of jumped on their bandwagon because they got praise for it.
Yeah.
So I feel like they earned a spot, and I can see.
Yeah.
I like they're working together, and I can see they're going to bring some great stuff. But I'm all the giant Lego brick just didn't do it for me at all.
You wouldn't have put that in the top 2 because it's your choice.
No.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. What about you, Chris? What were your thoughts?
The challenge itself led to disappointing builds to me, and here's why is because you're building to scale. So it's a tree house, and you have to build a house that's the size of that tree, right?
Yeah, you can't make it bigger than the tree. Yes.
And things need to be, for the camera, they need to be big in order to really see it. Because we build things all the time, and then we post pictures of it, and it's like,
yeah, you're zooming in.
It's like you have to see it in person, and that's the way a lot of it. Like when we went to Legoland and we got to see your guys' builds, it was amazing. But on camera, it was not as amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely
it was amazing.
Minimizes everything. Yeah,
it does minimize it. So this challenge led to smaller builds, and so because of that, none really stood out. But when you think of it, the brick built characters. So Dom and Ethan's brick built characters were the best.
Yeah.
And then moving down from there, Nick and Stacy's brick stood out.
Yeah,
and
that's
I
good.
did like that. So none of them, there wasn't like a huge disparity between good and bad.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with the top 2.
Yeah, they weren't standing out to you, but you're fine with the position.
Yeah, I was fine with it.
Gotcha. What about you, Daniel?
I still really liked the Lego brick. I think it was a really good concept to be recognizable, have a huge impact from a distance. I think they did tie it in really well when they added like the extra little stars and things hanging from the branches. I think that added some other interest and some contrasting colors to that. So I think they were justified in the win for the whole challenge.
Yeah.
I also think though that Dave and Emily were a top 2 quality build, but I don't know which of the 2 teams I would sub out to put them in. So that's why I said if there was like a top 3, they would have for sure have had that spot.
Yeah.
Those 3 were definitely the top for the challenge.
Well, I think my thoughts are kind of a conglomeration of all of those, because I think that overall the builds were pretty good, but I think they were limited by the fact that they're on a tree and they only had 10 hours, and they might have been working with some of the limitations there. I think that I wouldn't necessarily have put those 2 teams in the top 2. I could definitely see why they were in the top 2. They both had great reasons for being selected for that, but I think I would have put Dave and Emily up there regardless of either of those 2 builds. I think that theirs was definitely top 2 worthy. If it was me, I probably would have picked them to win. I also think that for me, Greg and Brennan were a little bit underrated this episode just because their composition was really good. I think that they were lacking in the wow factor and the pull in from a distance. But for me, composition is more important than that. So that would be my preference, but I can see why the other 2 teams got the top 2. So interesting, and good for Nick and Stacy. I feel like they've been trying to prove themselves. And I know Nick is like a long-time AFOL, really good builder, so I'm excited to see them get some success. So that's fun. But the bottom 2, much less happy, more emotional moment for the show. It ended up being Michelle and Christine were in the bottom, and then it was also John and Xavier. So how did you guys feel about that? Let's start with Chris. What did you think about the bottom 2?
Well, I don't think Michelle and Christine should have gotten kicked off. I don't think they should have been in the bottom 2. I liked their use of color. I liked their Aztec build that they did. They have a very unique building style that I kind of wanted to see more of.
Yeah.
I definitely would have kicked off the enemy. Friends.
So that their mistakes with their treehouse, you think would have sent them home for you? So
yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Daniel? What was your synopsis?
I agree. John and Xavier's mistakes were more fundamental to their idea, and the point that somebody brought up to me was that was what they were able to put together in 10 hours.
Yeah.
Whereas
no
Christine
problems
and Michelle,
with ideas.
They took a long time to come up with their idea, but it was a better idea overall.
Yeah.
And then they got at it and they powered through and they were able to build that in about 4 hours.
It was quite good looking.
Very much agree that it could have used a lot more detail and characters and story, but from across the room, it did have a much better effect.
The mushroom was much more of an eye catcher than the little ladder on the side for John Xavier.
Yeah.
So,
But I think that the judges sent them home because it was convenient, giving all the other drama that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
That was just what they figured was the more convenient choice, I think.
Yeah.
this
What
week.
about you, Randy? Is that the same thoughts for you, or is it different?
It's exactly. I agree with it.
Mhm.
John and Xavier's just and I don't feel like they've done very well in the past either. Whereas I feel like Christine and Michelle have really shown some great skill.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but that's what happens if you have an off night.
Exactly. I think that I definitely agree with Daniel's opinion there, where it's like the producers were probably more in control of what was going on here than we might give them credit for. I don't know. That's my theory. That because I think that Michelle and Christine did a better with the time they had, and once they did land on an idea, it was a quite good idea. They just ran out of time a little bit. I think John and Xavier made some bad idea choices, and then ended up just kind of continuing to plow through that. And their build was not as, I think it was about the same build wise, but then they had no idea of problems. They just had a bad idea, and then they I don't know. I think that I probably would have
They
said
didn't pivot well
Yeah.
either,
No.
which is another huge thing that they usually send people
they
home for.
pivoted the wrong way
Yeah.
probably,
Yeah.
and so I think I probably would have sent John and Xavier home. However, I can see why they sent Michelle and Christine home, just because if they're gonna have so many problems, like if Michelle was having that much trouble with the idea phase, then the producers and judges might be like, okay, you've had a good run. I think you're at the end of your rope here. I don't know. So it's sad, but that's how it goes. Somebody has to get eliminated.
Something else interesting I noticed, editing-wise, that I think was going on with the builds that they clearly liked and didn't like. When you watch like John and Xavier's versus Nick and Stacy's, I think in the actual video footage they're like upping the saturation and contrast
They're
to
brighter
make it
color.
very vibrant and bright. When they showed John and Xavier's, looking at the rainbow ladder, it was like dull and gray.
Yeah, they turned down that
They're
saturation.
very much like doing this kind of subliminal psychological messaging thing going on by adjusting those video settings, I think.
There's probably music going on too. Like you have really bright and
Probably.
happy music for Nick and Stacy, for example, but then you have maybe more down and somber music when you get to John and Xavier or
And it's
Michelle
not
and
to say
Christine.
that they're trying to like manipulate anyone's opinion, but I think they're just trying to show
The story.
in a shorter period of time at a quick glance what the real effect of it was in person.
Yeah, they're
But-
maybe guiding the stream a little bit,
Yeah,
just a little
something
bit.
I kind of picked up on in this episode, and now I'll certainly be watching out for in the future.
We definitely got the Lego Masters cliche of if you get a lot of screen time, you're either going to do well or not well, and so there was some of that in both sides of the camp again. So
Well, I
it's a little
started
bit.
to get a little worried about Liz and Aaron for that very reason.
Yep.
Exactly.
But they were able to pull it together there.
Yeah, I think they saved themselves from any issues by building a good structure and then working off of it in enough time. Well, overall good episode, and then they had a nice teaser for the next
next week.
one.
Oh, I didn't-
That's fine.
Yes.
That would be the dog show, which
I love this.
Brickminster.
that should be pretty exciting. This is very sculptural challenge. Looks like you see actual dogs running around too.
Yeah.
You see them running into the
Pretty
stage. So that
That's so awesome.
I don't know what they're gonna do. I remember on our season they said, whatever you see, just keep walking towards it. Just don't be afraid. And we're like, is it gonna be live animals? What are we gonna? And so we were speculating. That ended up being a big fan. It wasn't scary at all. But this is gonna be weird. Oh man. So I'm worried for the teams that might have had trouble with sculpting, and I'm excited for teams that have shown good sculpting skills. So it'll be interesting.
Well, and they're different dogs too.
Very
So
different.
Yes.
One dog could be easier to build than another dog.
I saw
That's crazy.
bulldogs
Yes.
and dachshunds and them falling apart, and there was like, you're gonna get
Seems like there were
disqualified
a lot
and
of
stuff.
structural issues
Yes.
going on in this challenge.
There was a lot of
Yeah.
bricks falling on the floor.
So looking
Yeah.
forward to that. We'll be here with all the coverage of that next week, assuming there's less baseball interruptions. So yeah, hopefully none of those. But thank you guys so much for sharing all your thoughts with us and having a great chat. It's been a lot of fun. We'll be back. Thanks for watching, guys. We sure appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye-bye.